Welcome to Pop Chat. My name is Annette Tarpley. I am the founder of The Passion of Poetry, and I'm very delighted to have with me today Chris Tagliati from Virginia, the same state I live in the U.S. He's from the Fairfax area. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah. Pretty
So,
close to DC, just about 16 miles outside of DC. But
yeah.
Northern Virginia, Fairfax County.
So
And
he's
thanks for
our
having
nice.
me on here.
No problem. We are Facebook friends. We met recently, and I was enchanted by his wonderful poetry. So one of the things that you do is you not only do that, but you do is it strongman competitions, and
Yes.
you have some really impressive footage that I've seen, and one that you had on your site. I know that you were lifting this 900 and some pound tire. That every time I see you do that stuff, my back is just aching. I'm thinking, oh. Do you wear braces and stuff to support your back when you do that?
Oh, for sure. Supportive equipment is plays a huge role, uh, especially having a weightlifting belt. It helps increase your inner abdominal pressure and basically it helps you really solidify your core. So when you're lifting something heavy, you're really braced nice and tight, and you've got your core completely 360 surrounded, so you don't have lower spinal flexion so much, and it just keeps you safe for lifting heavier weights.
Right. Well, uh, does anyone ever question you about you kind of polar opposite type of talent? You know, you have this love for that you do, and then you have this very sensitive, very complex poetic side too. And I mean, you don't usually see those two, things together, generally speaking. So,
Oh yeah, I definitely agree that it's not as common to have both traits, but to me it makes a lot of sense. And what I mean by that is both kind of arose out of a sense of necessity where, you know, growing up in the hecticness of life that we all experience as humans, uh, we all don't always find a place of belonging or an outlet within life. So being so internalized and introverted, writing to me was a great outlet because I didn't really have much of a voice. I didn't feel comfortable being myself nor expressing my own feelings, thoughts, or emotions. Like I kept most of those things buried deep and hidden. So talking to another person was very challenging and difficult. So writing was that first real way where I could sit down and put into words. And why I also chose poetry too is, you know, you can choose ideas or be symbolic where you can convey what you're feeling, but you're not having to be as direct about it. So you can speak more metaphorically. And then you find out a lot of people relate. And, uh, you know, eventually you become comfortable in your skin with time as the years progress. But that was really the first way that I learned to express myself and to begin to explore those inner worlds. And then
now I go
uh,
ahead.
conversely, with the strongman, uh, just strength training in general and having a way to challenge myself physically, it's very grounding. Uh, because a lot of times, maybe if whether I'm higher anxiety or what have you, you know, I can go in and show up and do some training and walk out feeling quite relieved. And the strength community is very supportive. So it's a good group of people to get to know and just to have that interactive element. Because I've not always been so. I'm not. I'm a friendly person. I just I don't really like to go out much. Like I said, I've always been mostly introverted my whole life, so I usually enjoy my own solitude and my own company. So it was nice to finally get myself out of that and you know, start connecting with the world around me.
Yeah, yeah. So you said that, but did we not have a conversation about how when you were in school you were kind of a class clown?
Oh, for sure. Growing up,
Because that's kind of that's kind of an extroverted quality, actually.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I still obviously love comedy. That's why I'm always sharing just all kinds of mental hilarity of thoughts that run through my brain. Uh, and I've been that way my whole life. The only time that changed was, I was more the class clown in like elementary, and then my dad
Um,
shipped me away to a boarding school, and being taken out of my home element and home friends, that's kind of where the shift happened, where I became internalized, I guess you could
yeah.
say.
Do you think that you kind of got, did something happen in your life where you became more introverted, where maybe people didn't make you feel so secure and you didn't, feel like you fit in? I know that I went to so many different schools when I was younger that I very often felt like I didn't fit in.
Yeah.
And kind of on the outside, I'm very outgoing and I can talk to anyone, but I felt sometimes very uncomfortable and just out of place. So um, I can certainly understand that, you know.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's just a lot of childhood stuff combined in with it. Being raised in an environment that isn't quite normal, but you don't know it at the time. So if you normalize uh, just not good behavior from family, you develop a negative mentality outlook where there's something wrong with me, I'm wrong, and you believe that the world is against you because you've grown
Yeah.
up around somebody who was so against you that they made you believe otherwise. And then, it takes years until you finally realize, wait a second, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm a good person at heart. And this whole time it was them just influencing you because you were a blank canvas that didn't know any better. But
Mhm.
so that just takes years to go through and learn and unravel all of that.
I think that given all of that, it's really something when you kind of come to yourself and you finally realize that you're able to accomplish things that you didn't think that you could, and to do things that you didn't, think
Oh,
you could.
precisely.
Yeah, which you have. So and both of those mediums, I think that you're able to really, accomplish things that perhaps you never thought maybe when you were younger you could do. You've been
Oh, for
writing,
sure.
been
And
writing
I
poetry.
still face those challenges as we speak, like even now. There's times I'll write some really heartfelt poetic expression, and if I decide to like share it on a public forum, maybe I feel good about it the moment that I do, but I'll wake up the next day and have regrets of like, oh my god, did I really put that out there? Because it's like opening your heart to the world. And then likewise on strongman competitions, many mornings I'll wake up the day of the competition and had like maybe poor sleep the night before, woke up like maybe an hour or two before my alarm, and then I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? Why did I sign up? Like, I don't want to go, I don't feel like going. But I just know those are just initial feelings of anxiety. Once I show up and start with the competition, I feel much better and I'm glad. But even tonight, like it's like, oh man, why did I say I'm going to do this podcast? I've never done one of these before. So I get anxiety over everything, no
Yeah,
matter what it
but
is. It's
it is.
just like
Yeah.
that initial uncomfortableness, but usually you're glad that you did it once you start. And especially after you finish, you're like, oh yeah, I'm really glad I showed up for that.
At least for me, I think things that have caused me anxiety or that I kind of worry about or question are when I go and attack it and just do it.
Hmm.
Then that's really, taken
You
care of.
can't listen to the mental part because
Yeah,
that'll
yeah,
untalk you out of everything. Uh,
yeah. You just have to shut it down and say, I'm going to do this. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? The
yeah.
podcast doesn't go on, or, I used to tell people if you go to, because I used to do psych, if you go to the grocery store and you start having an anxiety attack, you got social anxiety, I used to say, just what's the worst that happens? You leave the store with a cart full of groceries. So what? You know? But I told people this for years that I do this naturally, but I always tell people with like social anxiety that you need to be like a horse. You need to put the blinders on, and just pay attention to this much because this much is too much to handle. So you just pay attention to this and don't worry about this. And then it really decreases your anxiety. You just don't worry about what's going on in the exterior, you know? And, and like my dad used to say, you know, you'll find in life most people like you and the people who don't matter. So,
Precisely.
yeah.
And
So we have,
that
I'm
was
sorry?
something I was gonna say that was something I really had to learn was you know, the people that have the negative comments or remarks and the ones that don't like you, they really don't matter. And it's like I wasted so many years of my life caring about that stuff that was absolutely frivolous. So I'm glad I finally learned that too. I definitely agree with you there.
Yeah. And I think as we get older, we just realize it doesn't matter. I mean, what we do is not going to be everybody's cup of tea. You know, there's going to be people who like it, people who don't like it. You know, to each his own. Just like there's things that we like and we don't like. Um,
Precisely.
but
And
speaking of which, I really want you to share some of your poetry because I was so impressed by it. You were going to say something?
I guess the last thing that I was going to highlight while we are on that subject is too often we think that if somebody disagrees, we have to be like enemies or hateful. And it's like, wait a second, this world is big, broad, and there's so many mass unknowns beyond just a little tiny speck of dust that we know and perceive. And it's like, just because we don't necessarily agree on something doesn't mean that we have to be enemies or hate on each other or speak
Yeah.
negatively. And I think that's something that's forgot because it seems like nowadays that if somebody disagrees, then, they've got to hate on you or speak badly. And it's like, no, we should allow room for differences because even for our best friends or closest acquaintances or significant others or what have you, there's always going to be differences, but yet we still love them.
Yeah.
We may not like everything
It's
about them.
interesting that you're bringing that point up because I recently talked to someone and he said to me, what do you think has moved society forward? Do you think it has been when we are in agreement or we are in disagreement? And I said, well, when we're in agreement or there's compromise. And he said, no, disagreement, because different formulations of ideas and things like that is what advances mankind, having the same rule of thought across the board isn't really going to probably advance our knowledge and so forth. Whereas when you have somebody coming from a different perspective and a different way of thinking, that might be innovative and whatever, that's kind of what really moves us forward. So I think it's always good to listen to other people's ideas and it might be something. And then Kathy Griffin says, agree to disagree, Kat's here. So, and then she also says everyone gets anxiety at some point. I'm trying to show this, which they do. They do. And I always say it's good. I tell everyone when you have anxiety, it's good to take it and to move it into, an artistic form.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Some of my most intensive inner energetic moments, especially high anxiety, those have also been some of my deeper dives for writing or more impressive feats for strength because anxiety is energy. It's just like an over the top
Yeah.
level of energy.
Yeah.
But if you can channel that into some kind of creative endeavor,
Yeah, that's what I tell people all the time. I just had a chat with a patient of mine who's a young patient in a nursing home and got in a bad car accident, but he's facing some pretty bad things. And he's written before, so I've been really encouraging him to write. And we had a long talk, and I shared my favorite poem, Desiderata, with him, which he's feeling bad about himself and has this piece in it. I don't know if I recited this to you, but do not distress yourself with dark imaginings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness, and beyond a wholesome discipline, Be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. So that was written many years ago by Max Ehrman, but the whole thing's filled with wisdom and knowledge. It's a beautiful poem. Um, and but I want to hear your stuff because I'm very excited for you to share, for people to hear, um, because your poetry is intense, it's deep, it's meaningful, heartfelt, and are you ready to share one with us?
Oh, sure.
If you want to,
Yeah.
yeah, why don't you share one, then we'll come back and talk. So
All right. Let me pull it up here. Okay. Am I still here?
yes, you're still here.
Oh, all right. Uh, I wasn't sure because first time I clicked away to change the screen. I was like, oh, hope it didn't go away. All right. So I call this one the Evermost Eternal Why. And I already shared this one with you before, but again, this is one of my favorites. I think I wrote it back in like 2013 or 14, somewhere around there. But all these years later, still resonates deeply with me and still one of my favorites. The embrace of mortification's breath as 1,000 percussions upon the body, numbing the torment, enraptured in the bliss of completeness, rest from sorrow, a subtle procession into the vastness of the eternal, where time ceases and all is as nothing, forever asleep, immortally dreaming, perpetually drifting, into greater lakes of places I do not know. Who am I? Who is this person in the mirror? And of what facade? Of what manner is an eye with which to behold? And what do I peer? Silence, withdrawal into the space between space, where not even words can penetrate. Emptiness, peace, solitude. Mountainous caverns with depths that plummet into virtual colossal celestial bodies, only once again to disintegrate back into the cloud of unknowing. Contentment of the void of contemplationlessness, a doing away of ruminations, abolishment of slavery to the mind, only to once again wonder, the question that drives, the all encompassing, oppressing possessor, the evermost eternal why.
It's just beautiful. I absolutely love that. Um, and I know that we talked and you're not published yet, but hopefully you will be soon. So many of us can buy your works and just
Well, I mean, thank you for just the appreciation of such and, for
it,
inviting me to share.
does that amaze you too that somebody can read or listen to your works and think it's great? Because when you write it, you're writing it just to write it, but that someone can appreciate what you write.
Oh,
It's wonderful.
most definitely. And it's funny too, because it also takes a long time to uh, realize how many people actually do appreciate. Because, I used to get plenty of compliments over the years for writing, and people asking me if I have written books or published things before, but never really settles in because you don't necessarily see yourself that way. It's just something that you did, and
Yeah.
yeah, even now it still doesn't really register. Even though I've,
Yeah, I just wish Alan Johnson was still alive because I so would have loved to have given him that piece and had him go to town on it with his voice. And yeah, and see what he would do with it. I mean, you do a great recitation also, but Alan just puts us all to shame, or did. Um, so yeah, it's really marvelous that I mean, not just the words, the depth of your work. And when you're speaking earlier about sometimes sharing your work and kind of being exposed, which we are.
mhm.
I do write some fiction, but it comes from somewhere usually, right? So I think that what I find is, as you spoke earlier, speaking metaphorically is sometimes a good thing because we can weave our words into such a way that it's a little obtuse and maybe not straightforward, kind of hide behind it a little bit.
Oh,
And
most definitely. Being
yeah,
able to describe the feeling and emotion and paint that without exactly saying what it is that you're specifically going through at the time.
yeah, exactly. So if you could yourself put in your own words your personal definition of poetry, how would you describe it or define it?
To me, poetry is creative writing, first and foremost. And really, it's just the free liberty of you're not writing a speech. You're not giving some kind of English dissertation where it has to follow some traditional set of rules. It's just your own liberty with words, complete freedom.
Yeah. So when you sat to write that piece that you just recited, that beautiful piece, how long did that take you, would you guesstimate, to write something like that?
Couple minutes.
Really?
It all comes at once. I'll have like a. It doesn't always have to be an intense internal energy or anything of that nature, but sometimes I just feel moved, whether by emotion, music, something of that nature, and it all just flows out at once. I don't sit and think about what should I write next. It just flows out one solid piece. So
Yeah.
most all of my writings were probably written in like just a couple minutes or less.
Yeah.
That's
Just
usually
boom. Yeah. Yeah. It kind of flows out of me like that too. Not in a couple minutes. And usually it's 5 to 15 to 20. But I know some people who write will mull over it for days and in pieces and then, keep going over it and changing. Once you write it, is that it? Pretty
yeah,
much? Yeah. It is what it is, right?
precisely.
Yeah. 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 I kind of write that way too. Everybody has their own kind of way of articulating and writing. And it's always interesting to hear people's various ways that they write or do things. Do you mostly do writing by hand, on the computer, your phone?
I'm a much more keyboard slash computer person because I like being able to type with 10 fingers. I can type way faster than I can write. And my brain moves so quick most times. At least with typing, I can keep up with my brain. But if I had to sit down and write it, uh, my mind would already be well beyond where my hand would be at that point.
Yeah. Well, I would like to hear another piece, if you wouldn't mind. I'm going to give the stage back to you and let you share another one with us, if you would, please.
Sure, let me do the second one here. Don't necessarily have a title for it, but here goes. Oh, the high times of low reveling, when the night's shades are just perfectly shattered, and the madness ensues to whisk one away upon tales and whims, where electrification ensues. Oh, walking fragmented souled shard of hearted lute flutes, play me your tune for a time, passing the wine of insanity. Don't look too close, for the fading breeze just might whisk you within, and creatures of great imploration, aberration, gasped within the smoke, might suck you into creases, ceaseless, for when drawing you in through the whisperless pooling pools, eyes engulfing like a thousand shades, drawing the deathly beauty, and if perchance inhaled as some fragrant rose, decompose, would you wilt away to herald a new sway, new lay, e'en in the deathbed of proses, let loose the knife, gripping tight, enveloping waves, hypnotic enclaves of shades berate the plays, a feast of fools, for loosing the losings, I'm hopelessly lost within the cooling fires, just another liar, layered cares inspired, inspired, since perchance perspiration, fragmentation, incineration. So let me ride you like a wave, though touchlessly depraved, like a wisp of whispering winds in these never-ending glades.
Beautiful. Also, your writing is very much to me like it's a bit more complex, and it's more on a level that I would think someone would write who has a fairly decent amount of education and literary background. So I don't know if you had any advanced education in it or if you've done a lot of reading, but you very much have a more complexity to your work.
So thank you. And I used to love books a lot more. What I mean by that is I used to read a ton, but I haven't read so many books over the last few years.
Yeah. Have you read much poetry?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Is there someone that you are there a poet or poets that you tend to gravitate towards?
I have my most favorite poet, which is Rainer Maria Rilke. He's one of my favorites.
I'm
And
not familiar with him.
I
I
identified,
thought you could tell me Poe. I don't know why. I thought you were going to say Poe.
uh, I really identified with his writing style and the way that he expressed things. Really related, um, you know.
Yeah, you do such a great job with it. It's just it's amazing to me. It always amazes me that um, there's so many poets, and they have each has their own style and their techniques or way of weaving their words. And mine tends to be a little bit more simplistic. I can talk about more cerebral stuff, but I usually keep it very simplistic and try to choreograph it in such a way that it can emote. But I think that yours is very stimulating to me because it is more complex, but not complex beyond an average person's mind. I mean, it just makes you want to really listen to the content and really be like a sponge and just take it in. So yours is it's remarkable. You're a great writer, and you've written for a while, and you've written a lot, right?
Oh yeah, it's didn't really start writing much until maybe about 2012, and since then, it's got to be thousands upon thousands. Just because sometimes when the mood strikes, I could pump out 5 or 10 pieces in a single night. To, you know, and then you also have your times where nothing. Uh, so sometimes people ask me if I could write them something, and I say, yeah, uh, I'll try to get around to that, but I can't promise you a certain date or time because for me, it's like a wave. It comes and it goes, and I don't decide when that happens. But when it does happen, that's when I write.
I find it very difficult to do that, like to write on commission versus
Yeah,
just from the heart, because then it becomes more like work. You know,
precisely.
yeah, it's not. It kind of takes the fun out of it, and all of a sudden it's like you have a timeline. You have to do this. You have to include this, and it just becomes like even when I did jewelry and would make jewelry, and somebody would commission me to something, I couldn't stand that those pieces. I just wanted to make it, and you like it and buy it. So I didn't want to be told kind of what to do. But
Oh yeah,
yeah,
just having a set date and time for something isn't necessarily my favorite of styles either. Even when it comes to strength training, in my head, I have my own general plan. But when it comes to day of, I listen to my body. How do I feel? And, I take my time getting there. So a lot of times uh, by myself, I go at my own speed. And I don't worry about the time or any of that. But like, say, if I have a buddy that wants to meet up, if we set a specific time, yeah, I'll still show up, but I don't like having to constrain myself to that. But I know it's necessary for us as humans because how else are we going to come together? But
so
it's nice to be more lenient.
more spontaneity than something that's more rigidly set. You know, like
Yeah, I'd say so.
yeah, yeah. I kind of like spontaneity as well whenever it lends itself to me. But I notice a lot of people don't like it. Okay, we need to schedule something, and it's like, well, can't we just do it now? So yeah, I'm more spontaneous. So I ask this question of everyone that comes on here. I'm going to ask you too. Tomorrow you come across Aladdin's lamp and you are granted three wishes.
Hmm.
What three wishes would you wish for? And it can be anything you want.
That's actually uh, my mind's gonna draw blanks because that's a really deep one that I wouldn't legitimately know how to answer. You know, uh,
Okay.
because you can go so many different ways. If you're a person that's believing of heaven and the nature, and you ask for heaven on earth, well, wouldn't that solve everything else? Why would you have to ask for riches if you had heaven on earth? Uh, so
Yeah, good point. And it's okay not to have an answer.
yeah,
So if I ever ask something you don't have an answer, it's okay. So some people, a lot of people will answer that and they'll, talk about, world hunger and eliminating disease and things like that, which are all nice. But
hmm,
there's part of me that wants something selfish.
yeah,
So, like one of the things, my goals, I always say one day I want there to be a poetry cruise where all these poets take a cruise together. And I think that would be cool. So that would be on my list of things to do, which is a bit selfish because it's, involves fun, I guess, but and not solving world hunger.
yeah.
Although, yeah, anyway. So, is there anything that you think that we can do? Do you find that many people, um, especially within your family and friends that you've known for a long time, do they appreciate your poetry?
Uh, yeah, for those that I'm close with, I would say so.
And have you ever written anything for your mother?
Believe it or not, no. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I'm just curious. I find that it's people outside of my immediate circle that usually like my work. People who've known me for a long time. I mean, there's a few, but and I don't know if you're very heavily into the Facebook poetry community, but it's a very warm and encouraging and very much a supportive environment. And, that's what I strive really to make my site, although it has 123K members now. So I still want it to feel like a home and very much a place where people, feel the warmth and the camaraderie that we do.
and
I started it out of spite, a few 4 years ago when I went to somebody's site and posted something and she critiqued my poem, and I thought, fine, I'll just go start my own site. And I just kind of did it out of spite, and it just kind of spiraled. But my basis for the site was, that people would be supportive, there wouldn't be any negativity tolerated, and that type of thing.
yeah,
So yeah.
I did want to just go back and say that I do feel kind of bad when you asked if I had ever written a poem from my mom, and I said no. But I guess if anything of redeeming qualities can be said, I've done a lot of like handmade creative gifts with like woodworking and create your own
Oh,
card and art and that kind of stuff. So
well,
I've
that's
yeah,
great. It's not that you don't love your mother. I never wrote anything for my mother until she died, and I had to bury it with her. So it used to be I could only be prompted by a major event, and for a long time that's how I'd write. So I was just hoping she was listening somewhere when I was saying at her funeral, or I like I said, I buried it with her, and it really bothered me. I couldn't write anything while she was alive, for her
yeah.
to enjoy. But um, but everybody's different, and do you have a lot of poetry friends on Facebook?
Not really. No. Yeah.
No. Yeah. Do you have a lot of strong men?
Yes. Yeah. It's a pretty big community, so it's always growing and connecting with more people.
Yeah.
I
Are
definitely
there
enjoy it.
are there very many events near you, or do you have to travel to them?
Both. I mean, they're not. too far away. Maybe like an hour, 2 hours away. And they're held globally. There's always stuff going on, so it's just what's going on in vicinity to you. And then, of course, if you get good enough to where you're competing nationally or internationally, then obviously that's when you're going to do some bigger traveling to get to those events. But I've just been mostly doing all local stuff.
Yeah. So is it do they occur very often, or are they I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. There's different federations, and there's always somebody doing a competition. Obviously, some of the fun ones, like what I just did recently with Virginia's Strongest Man, I really enjoyed that. So, and then
Are
there
they
will be just
just
more
for men?
exhibition ones.
Is it just
Uh,
for men, or are there women too?
no, no, no. There's also strong man / strong woman. Uh, it's not as many women competitors, but on the world level, there's quite. I mean, it's equally partitioned out for sure. It's just on local level. Usually, you have a lot more men competing than women. I think in the last Virginia's Strongest Man and Strongest Woman, it was, I'd say maybe there's about 6 women competitors and maybe like 40 or 50 men. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I can, and I understand that. I mean, I can barely open a jar of pickles sometimes. So, there's times where I don't have enough hand strength, and I'm always,
Oh,
even
it
though,
happens to us all. Yeah.
yeah. Oh,
I mean, different
does it
jars
happen
and
to you
stuff.
too? It does.
What's that?
It happens to you too, where you can't open up
Oh
a
yeah,
jar.
yeah. There's been times where I've had to pull out like the little rubber glove, whatever, just to
Yeah.
get that extra grip on there.
Yeah. You know what I do? I take like the back end of a butter knife and dent the
Mhm.
lid about 4 or 5 times, and then it opens right up. So I guess it kind of breaks the seal. But yeah, I can remember one Halloween I went and took, and I had a jar of beets, like pickled beets. I couldn't get it open, and the doorbell rang, and there was a bunch of teenage girls there, and I asked one of them. I asked them if they could open it for me. So two of them tried, they couldn't do it, and the third one got it, but she got her the beets
Ah, yeah, just shot. Yeah, I got you.
all over. Yeah. Whoops. So I think I would like for you to share another piece, if
Okay,
you don't mind. And I'm going to give the stage back to you because I know people are going to be loving your poetry.
sure. Got no specific title for this, unfortunately. I know you like titles, but here it goes. Scarlet stains, pains of pain, painted feathers roll volcanic ash upon jaguar toothed nether, and reflection, oh refraction, of her eye. Help place her memory from my mind. Hear me clearly, clear me, musically appearing, sanctifying, inward eyes prying. Tear apart the cage, dig your fingers deep in rage. Paint me something red upon the skin, pen scripts the page. Deep internal linger, running, gliding, softly, gentle little finger. Whispers me away till my body melts as clay. Forever safe inside, she's always inward, hiding, beauty reflecting from her mirror, all but briefly disappears within her eye. So for but a moment, here I lie.
Beautiful. So, I talked about your style being, a bit more complex and so forth. And later on, text me who the poet is that you like. And so I can look them up because I'm not familiar with them. But so do you think that your style kind of mimics that person's style?
Oh no, not at all. Our writing styles are vastly different. It's just his message, is underlying what comes across. That's what I really agree with. Uh, so maybe outside of a poetic style, internally as a philosophy, I more identify with him. So I'll do a lot of philosophical writings and reflections because I always like studying and exploring the unknowns, what makes us tick, what makes us who we are. what are the things beyond, and what about all the fears and the stuff we'd rather not look at, and the voids that we all have in our own hearts and souls that we just kind of aimlessly run away from. It's like, well, what if I sit here and vacillate within the space and become one with it? And it's like, okay, well, now I'm this great big unknown, just as unknown as the space. Well, let me explore things within here. So his style of writing examines and answers those things to me on a very relatable level. And so on that philosophical scale, I really identify with him in that way.
Do you find that your style changes, or does it remain pretty consistent?
It can change depending on the subject, but I mean, how I write, I think, remains relatively the same.
Yeah.
But there's definitely some variance for sure.
Now, I'm surprised. I don't think you have. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that you haven't attended maybe open mic events or poetry events near you. I'm
No,
sure
yeah.
them.
Yeah, I've never done anything. This is my first time doing anything in terms of
it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier here. Recently, I went back to Iowa. I'm from about 3 months ago, and looked at poetry events and went to like a poetry slam, and everybody was very comfortable with going up there on the mic, and I was acting nervous. My voice was shaking, and I could do it like this just fine. But you get me up there, and they're all kind of spoken word artists and very good at what they do. They've honed their skill, and so their style and so forth is a little different than mine. I mean, I love and embrace all types of poetry and so forth. We have a oh, here we go. On that note, here's a comment regarding that, and it's Jana Westberg, who says you need to. So, and I agree with that. I think that they would eat you up as far as you go there, and they will love your stuff. So, and it might be a little intimidating when you first do it, but then you get over it because everybody's supportive, and we all kind of go through that nerves when we first do it. So it's
yeah. Thank you, Jana, and likewise for yourself for thinking that. But I know for sure I would have like sky high anxiety. But I mean, that's just normal to be expected, and that's just temporal. It passes too. But I for sure know that I would have that as well. But sometimes that can help out because it's better to have some energy than to just kind of feel lifeless, so to speak. Not that we don't have contrasting moments throughout life, but when you've got to perform, whether like in strongman and strength, or perform as in giving a speech or sharing a writing, you want to have some energy and life in you to deliver it.
Yeah. I mean, you do, and I understand that initial angst. There are online things that you can do, if you're ever interested in that, and that might kind of break you into it. But generally speaking, I think people are very have a lot of acceptance. There was one actually that went on last night. I could have sent you the link, and we could have both joined it. But it's one that I regularly do, and then he highlights people as well. Although he's never highlighted me. just saying. Mine might not be as stellar as yours, but we have more comments. I think she says yes, they would, as far as eating you up. And the more you do, the easier it gets, and the anxiety completely goes away. And it does. I think when we were talking earlier about when we have those fears, just kind of conquering and doing them, I was an ER nurse years ago, and the thought of defibrillating a patient was like, I was so scared of it. And then you just do it. And then I think it's by doing it, you kind of get over the fear because, so you do know Jana?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'm glad one of your friends is here. You recite your poetry beautifully, and you have a nice voice. And I've told you the same thing.
Thank you.
You do a very good job of presenting your own work. So, speaking of which, do you have another one for us?
Sure. Let me see. I think I have one more pulled up here. Yeah, it was one that I just recently reshared again, but again, it's another one from maybe about 10 years ago, and it says, "A lone butterfly echoes across the field. The sun rises for a final crawl across the sky. The lonesome flower hung in gloom. Fret not," said the butterfly, "for I have room in my heart, and soon. A lonesome flower is this day graced with a colorful explosion for one moment in time. All of its toils, struggles, moments alone in the barren field, it seems they have paid off for this one moment in bliss, this one moment. And thus the flower learnt of the stillness in the moment. Thankfully, it had a taste. The sun set that final day, and the flower wilted away. But that moment lives on for all eternity, and that moment is there for you and for me. So take my hand, and we will walk in this field. And just as the story goes, true love revealed."
Beautiful. Softer side definitely showed, you have that nature kind of component in there, and it really is beautiful. Very heartfelt. It's it's great. What genre would you think that you probably gravitate more as far as where your poetry, most of your poetry lies that you write?
Hmm. Uh, yeah, I've kind of got these two polarizing sides. One likes to explore kind of the darker undercurrents, unknowns, and uh, more hurtful aspects. And then the other side likes to kind of explore the beautiful and light and airy sides of just life and love.
Yeah, I think it's important to give a voice to both. I mean, love, hope, happiness, and joy is all good, but not everybody has that every day. We all go through those tougher times, and to be able to articulate both is a great thing. We know that, yes, love, peace, happiness, and hope, and all that stuff is great, but in all reality, we don't all live in that little sphere.
Hmm. And
So
as a human, we experience it all. So it's nice to be able to open up and express and acknowledge, because we all fluctuate. We're all in a constant state of change. We don't get to choose our emotions. Uh, so, sometimes we're going to have sadness or happiness or anything in between, or any other feeling too. Some people like to maybe vilify or demonize even other emotions like anger, but I think anger is a pretty natural thing to experience. If
yeah,
you get wronged, I think it's natural to be angry about being wronged,
yeah,
or plenty of other things. So there's nothing wrong with an emotion or experiencing it, and
and
it-
expressing it, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So one thing I wanted to ask you, and I usually don't think of things ahead of time. I'm kind of spur of the moment, but I did think of this, and that is, if tomorrow you could only do one thing that you love, would it be the strong man or would it be writing?
Mm.
You can only do
Well,
one. One's going to be taken away.
so it's not just for that day alone; it's for like the rest of my life.
Yeah, yeah. You can only do one of them.
Well, I mean, I'd still choose writing because I could still lift weights, still do strength training. I could do powerlifting. Uh, there's a lot of things other than just strongman. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, that was too easy because
I should have taken that totally out. I should have added that to the element. You can't do anything like that. No weight training, no whatever. But you kind of like slipped it in there anyway. Well, I don't have to do strongman, but I can still do, weightlifting and stuff.
yeah.
So they're both really powerful in your life,
Mhm.
and hopefully you'll never have to make that choice. And you can just do what you love. And that is my dog that is
Oh, no worries. Yeah.
barking you accolades. So she's saying, "Boy, he's really good." I'm saying, "Yeah, he is." So Is there anything that you think that we can do in the poetry world to really bring poetry more into the forefront and change people's minds about what they think poetry is? Because I feel like most of the time when they say they don't like poetry, they don't have a good grasp about the concept of what poetry is and how involved in life poetry is. So, what do you think that we could do to
Hmm.
really
It's a
somehow
really
get
good
it out
question.
there?
Well, a lot of our favorite songs and music and uh, artwork and you know movies, so on and so forth. Poetry has an influence everywhere. You there's a lot of poetic songs. Not all songs are necessarily poetic in nature, but most of them are more than they're not. And there's some amazing poetically rich songs that are out there that nobody really knows about. But I mean, I appreciate it, and that's the thing. There's always going to be people who love and appreciate things regardless. I wouldn't know how to say to grow it to a more popularized level because you know where
Do
would I
you
go
think
with that exactly? It's
do you think that, well, one of the things that I personally think is that it probably isn't in our education system like maybe it should be. Like maybe children really aren't taught poetry. Instead of making it something painful, it doesn't have to be painful, but it can be something. I mean, even from grade school up, um, because a lot of children's books are poetry. Dr. Seuss, and I mean, lots of different things are poetry. But I don't think that they really teach it as such, as far as being poetic.
mhm.
I don't know. I'm always looking for new initiatives to put it on the forefront. One of these
Yeah,
days, I'll do
I
something
think
big.
it's hard to entice people to get to do something because a lot of things get born from necessity, and it's just something that arises from within a person. And it's like, well, how did that happen? Because growing up, I would have never thought that I would care to write. I would have thought maybe I was boring or I just wasn't interested in it. If somebody told me back in my school days that one day you're gonna create thousands of poems, I'd have been like, what in the hell? Like, why? Because
Yeah.
it just wasn't a part of my life back then. So to me, it birthed out of a necessity to write and express, and then it became a passion. And who can tell why some things become passions for some people? I don't want to climb Mount Everest, but there's plenty of people that want to sign up to do that because they're
Yeah.
passionate about climbing mountains. So who's
Have
to
you
say why
have you
wouldn't?
ever encouraged someone else to write that you feel like it might be helpful somehow to them? Have you ever like encouraged someone else to write? Try writing. Try.
Anytime somebody's shared like their problems or feelings or emotions, I've always recommended trying to write it out. As that way you get it out, and then whether you want to share it, not share it, but as long as you just get it out. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. I think it's cathartic. Is that how you started? Do you think you
yes,
started that way? Was it more kind of journaling type thing, and then it kind of evolved?
I combination. If I was going through something, I would write it out, but it would be more again metaphorically and poetic than it would be like literal or verbatim.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's we have. I'm just trying to see. I think we have a couple of other comments. I think um, Kat said very nice about the last poem that you recited. I didn't try writing until I started reading poetry in groups. Yeah, Kat recently came across the poetry community. She's actually one of my admins and good friends, and she does write occasionally, but has very much felt in the poetry community as being a great support system to poets and commenting on their works and so forth. But can't tell you what a joy it's been to have you, and that you actually, I asked you kind of impromptu last minute if you'd come on, and you said yes. And but I very much wanted to share with the world as much as we can through this medium your wonderful work, and encourage you to get published someday so we can all have a little piece of you and your wonderful works that you do. So thank you so much for coming
Oh,
on.
you're most welcome, and thank you as well. So it's the first time I've ever done something like this, and appreciate you thinking of me to invite me onto this, and help stretch me beyond my own limits, because otherwise I probably would never venture out to do anything other than just what I've been doing. So
I would encourage you to really go out there into the poetry community, though, and to share your works, because I think that you'll be surprised in how much support you can get from it, and how much it really can boost. I don't think you need a self-esteem boost in the writing world, because I think you already know that you write well, but to read people's um, critiques and in a positive way of your works and so forth is very encouraging and moving. So I definitely, and we don't want to be robbed of your talents. So you have a great talent, and it was meant to be shared. So that's what I'm saying. Um, we don't want
thank
you
you.
to yeah, we don't want you to keep it to yourself, because they're great works, and we would feel privileged to see more of you um, in our
Well, I
community.
appreciate that.
And when you do write your first book, you can come back and we can do another pop chat, and then we can promote your book.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. But so I want to thank everyone for joining us today. And thank you again, Chris, and for sharing us with us your beautiful work and words of wisdom and so forth. So, love and blessings to everyone. Thank you for joining us. And thanks again, Chris. You're marvelous. You're a wonderful writer.
Oh, you're most welcome, and I hope everybody enjoys or found something to take away from it.
I'm sure they did. I'm sure they did. So, thank you, everyone. And please comment and welcome Chris into the community. Take care. Love and blessings to you all. Bye bye.
Bye.